please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live.
Hey everybody, it's time for another lineup projection video where today we're going to be talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs and what their lineup could look like during the return of hockey when they come back and play in their play-in series against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So basically what I do is I just go through the lineup, through the roster, and try and piece together what the lines could look like, make some changes, show different options that the team has as far as placing guys where, and talk about where I would put guys, talk about where I think the team will put guys, and different things like that. So before we begin, I just ask that you please subscribe if you are new, and give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already, as those likes really go a long way in helping the channel. But let's get into it here as we switch over to the cap-friendly screen and take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs lineup and all of their possibilities here. So to start, down the middle, I think is very pretty well set with the Maple Leafs. You've got Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Kerfoot is your third-line center, and then Jason Spezza is your fourth-line center. Obviously, they've got some big names on the wings, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, both normally play on the right side, so that's really their first option. I have Marner with Matthews. They played a lot together this year, but if you remember before this year, it was actually Marner and Tavares that played together a lot. So they have options there. You can put Nylander with Matthews and Marner with Tavares, or you can put Marner with Matthews and Nylander with Tavares. Based on what they were doing well, for a good chunk of the second half of this season, I'm going to say Marner starts with Matthews and Nylander with Tavares, but those right there are very switchable. Over on the left side, obviously Zach Hyman, again, kind of switchable as to who plays with who. Hyman could play up there with Matthews, and then I would think a healthy Mikheyev would be your other top left wing. Certainly with Johnsson. Well, Johnsson, even if Johnsson was healthy, I think he'd be your third line guy. But Johnsson out of the lineup gives you, one less guy to work with. So I think Mikheyev being healthy would certainly go somewhere. Now, he could play with Matthews on that top line, or he could play with Tavares. Similar to Marner and Nylander on the other side, they're both flippable. It depends on whoever, where the chemistry is best at that moment in time. And we've seen Sheldon Keefe switch guys around a lot this season. We've seen Marner play with both Matthews and Tavares. We've seen Nylander play with both. Hyman has played with both. So it very much, very much, just depends on what the coaches want to do and what they think is best for that game. Third line, obviously with Johnsson out, he normally would be on the left side here. So I have Pierre Engvall in. He actually pretty good depth guy this year. And then obviously Kerfoot's in the middle and Kasperi Kapanen on the right side. And then the fourth line, Spezza's in the middle with Kyle Clifford on the left side. And I have Dennis Malgin on the right. I think he's a guy that could definitely get some playing time these playoffs. And they got a bunch of other extra players available as well. I have Johnsson way down here because he's injured. There is a potential for him to possibly come back if the Leafs go deep into the playoffs, but he most certainly is not going to be ready for the beginning. But if they do play into September or something like that, deep into August or into September, we could maybe potentially see Andreas Johnsson. But you got Nicholas Robertson, Kenny Agostino, Freddie Gauthier is an extra center. Nick Piton can play any forward position, so good versatile depth guy to have there. Pontus Aberg has had a little bit of NHL experience in. Jeremy Bracco maybe gets a call up. Again, when they expand the rosters to, they're going to do 30 for training camp and then 28 for the actual when games start. So the pretty expanded roster there. There's a number of different guys that could, get called up. Moving on to goaltending and defense. Well, goaltending's really easy. Freddie Anderson's your starter. Jack Campbell's your backup. And Kaskisuo, never get that name right. Kaskisuo will likely get called up as the third goalie. Your D pairs, when healthy, D's healthy now, and that is absolutely huge for this team because defense is the big question mark with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but they get Muzzin back. Riley came back right before the season got put on pause. So Morgan Riley and Tyson Barrie, I think pretty much that's your top pair. There's no question there. That is your top pair, Tyson Barrie and Morgan Riley. And they're going to play together, and that leaves Jake Muzzin and Justin Holl as your second pair, your best defensive pair for sure. Muzzin is absolutely their best defensive defenseman. Holl has actually played pretty well. He is not a big name. Justin Holl is not a big name. I think in an ideal situation, he's not a top 4 defenseman. He's a bottom pair D-man, but he's been pretty solid for Toronto. A lot better than guys like CC and Marincin have been. So Holl's actually been pretty solid. I think he plays with Muzzin, and that's your shutdown defensive pair. Then Travis Dermott slides over to the right side, and Rasmus Sandin plays with him on the left side there of your bottom pair. I do not have Cody Ceci in this lineup. If I'm a Maple Leafs fan, I think a lot of you on this channel know how I feel about Cody Ceci. He's horrible, absolutely useless defensively. You do not want Cody Ceci in this lineup. So I have Dermott sliding over to the right side and Ceci dropping out of the lineup altogether. Also, I want Rasmus Sandin in this lineup. He's a young defenseman with a lot of upside potential. He needs this experience. He needs to play in this playoff style atmosphere. This is crucial for his development. If he's making the jump to being a full-time NHL defenseman, which he basically did this season, he needs to be in the lineup and he needs to be playing in these games. So I want Sandin in the lineup ahead of Ceci. I want him ahead of Marincin, ahead of Rosen. Absolutely, I could probably switch those, but I absolutely want him in the lineup ahead of all of those guys. Now, if you were to drop him out of the lineup, then Dermott would go back to the left side and Cody Ceci would play on your bottom pair there as that defenseman. But I do not want that. I want Travis Dermott there. I want Sandin in the lineup. And if you really don't want Dermott and Sandin, who are both kind of young guys playing together, then you could always do this and put Dermott with Muzzin and put Holl with Sandin, although that doesn't exactly make your bottom pair better. So I would just keep it like this. Holl, Muzzin, Dermott, Sandin, and then obviously Riley and Barrie are your top pair. So that's what I'm doing with the defense. Then obviously as extra defensemen, you've got Cody Ceci, you've got Martin Marincin, both who played quite a bit this year. Not well, but they were in the lineup. You got Calle Rosen still there. Timothy Liljegren as a right shot D-man. Still, I think, a year away for the Maple Leafs, but he'll definitely get a call-up as an extra guy. And Kevin Gravel is another guy with some NHL experience who would get a depth call-up as well. But overall, I think, this is what you're looking at with Toronto. Obviously, they've got a couple of pieces that they could tweak here and there. But for the most part, I think this lineup is pretty set when everyone's healthy. Up front, they have a little bit more that they could tweak around. Again, it's mostly just the wing. Which center do your top 6 wings play with? Do you want them with Marner, or do you want them with Matthews, or do you want them with Tavares? You can switch those guys, but for the most part, I think this lineup is pretty well set. And then you've got some decent depth guys here as well. So thing with Toronto, guys, let's switch back to the regular screen here. The thing with Toronto, guys, is that we know they have a very good forward group. We know that they're very, very talented up front and that they're going to score goals. The big question is and has been for the last number of years is defense, and can they keep the puck out of their net? Freddie Anderson, I think, is a very good goalie. I don't think he's a great goalie. He's not. I think he's in that second tier. He's not an elite top 5 NHL goalie. He just isn't. He's in that second tier of goaltender who's very, very good, but he's not elite, and the defense in front of him doesn't help. Guys like Tuukka Rask get to play with an elite defense in front of them, and Boston was the best defensive team in the league this year. Anderson doesn't have that luxury in Toronto. That defense in front of him is questionable. And I'm a huge fan of Morgan Riley. I love Morgan Riley. I'm a huge fan of Jake Muzzin. I've repeatedly said that he's Toronto's best defensive defenseman. But Barry struggles in his own zone. CC is awful. Marincin is awful. Hull is playing a role that is a little bit too big for him, but he's doing it fairly well. I think he's holding his own as a top 4 D-man very well. I think playing with Jake Muzzin will certainly help him even more. Sandin's a good young defenseman and a good young prospect and with a lot of upside. But again, he's very young and there's defensive questions there. And Dermott is a guy who, I'll be honest with you, when Dermott first came into the league, I was very, very high on him. He hasn't quite impressed me as far as what his ceiling is. I thought he was going to be a little bit better by this point. And he's just kind of been stagnant as that like bottom pair, solid two-way guy, but kind of a bottom pair guy. I thought he was really going to step up and become a legitimate top 4 D-man, and he just hasn't yet. So that's been a little bit disappointing. But the D is the big question mark with this team. Can they keep the puck out of their net? Having Muzzin back is going to be huge, obviously. Having Riley back is big. He's their best overall defenseman. But, we've seen, Muzzin and Riley were both there in the playoffs last year, and they still lost in the first round. So that's the big question for the Maple Leafs. We know they're going to score. What we don't know is can they keep the puck out of their own net. And that's going to, we remain to be seen as they play out in this play-in series, and then if they win that into the playoffs. But very good lineup up front, no doubt, and a good team overall. It'll be interesting to see what they look like and how they play. But with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.